The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. This is Wednesday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ben Bugera. It's 2 p.m., and here's what's making news right now. Our top story this hour, well, we may finally be in for some real winter weather across the lower mainland this week. Temperatures are expected to drop to a seasonal low of -10 in Vancouver tomorrow night, with wind chills reaching a low of -17. There is a 40% chance of flurries tomorrow evening, with mostly sun expected going into the weekend. Environment Canada has issued an extreme cold warning for the Peace River region, with temperatures expected to reach lows between -30 and -40. The temperatures are combined with a northerly wind system reaching highs of around 20 kilometers an hour. With the colder weather on the way, Vancouver's Oppenheimer Park continues to be one of the main camping spots for the unhoused. According to a bylaw, it is legal to camp overnight, but structures must be removed come daytime. The Crow's Kevin Pontius went down to Oppenheimer to give us an update on the situation.
Park rangers were joined by Vancouver police officers this morning to take down the tents that were set up again after last night's sweep. Over 15 structures could be seen this morning as law enforcement swept the park to evict the campers. This sweep comes days before one of the coldest periods in decades is set to hit the lower mainland, according to Extreme Weather Watch. The city of Vancouver currently has not released a statement regarding the timing or reasoning of this sweep. According to the City of Vancouver's homeless count, there are currently 2,420 people who identify as homeless. These numbers aren't perfect as the count takes place over the course of a 24-hour period and is unlikely to reach every person. Kevin Pontius, BCIT, The Crow.
With freezing temperatures coming to Vancouver, the Crow's Riley Leung spoke with BC Hydro on how they are preparing for what could be a busy weekend for them.
So far, BC and the lower mainland has experienced a warm winter, but that won't last for long. Freezing temperatures and a winter storm is set to hit Vancouver, and the city is preparing to face the storm. The only concern is how will residents handle the situation, and what happens when the power cuts out. I spoke to Kevin Aquino, a spokesperson from BC Hydro, on what people should be doing to prepare for the winter storm.
We always encourage customers to be prepared. Customers should always have an emergency kit on hand with supplies that last for at least 72 hours. And supplies can include a flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, water, and non-perishable foods. You should also know how to get a hold of us or find more information if the power does go out. And up-to-date outage information can be found on our website.
Kevin Aquino also stated that if you come across a down power line, active or not, stand 10 meters away from the site and call 911. Riley Leung, BCIT The Crow.
Riley joins us live now. So Riley, how is BC Hydro preparing for this spell of cold weather?
Thank you very much, Ben. Well, BC Hydro is preparing by ramping up the crews, contractors, and call center agents ready to respond to any calls and power outages in the lower mainland. Back to you, Ben.
What specific areas are most hit by the power outages, Riley?
Oh, well, usually areas along the coastal lines and power lines near trees, which have a possibility of collapsing during windstorms, winter storms, etc. They usually cause power outages. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you, Riley. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry gave an update this afternoon on BC's respiratory illness season. This marked Henry's first health update of 2024, which she gave alongside Health Minister Adrian Dix. Henry says this season's trends are a lot less concerning than last year's respiratory season.
What we're seeing is much more usual patterns compared to what we saw last year, where we saw influenza, COVID, and RSV peaking very early in November and then going off at the end of the year.
According to the most recent data from BC's Centre for Disease Control, cases of both influenza and RSV were on the rise in late December. The center also reported cases of COVID-19 were remaining stable or decreasing since early November. While we are almost at the midway point in January, some communities have yet to ring in the new year.
The spring equinox symbolizes renewal and rebirth. For many earth-based ideologies, such as paganism and astrology, this is when they celebrate the new beginning. Evolutionary astrologer Rose Marcus says it has everything to do with cycles.
We track the cycles of the sun and moon, as you see in the sky every month, from new moon to full moon and back again. And we also look at the relationship between any two planets cycles. So it's the cycles of life, from birth to death and the whole regenerative principle of cycles and cycles and cycles.
This year, the spring equinox lands on March 20th, marking the astrological new year. Brooke Jensen, BCIT, The Crow.
Looking stateside now, as former U.S. President Donald Trump sat in a federal courtroom yesterday in Washington, D.C., his Republican rivals were on the campaign trail in Iowa, where snow is blanketing parts of the state ahead of Monday's caucus.
Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy joining a campaign stop via iPad. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley thanking supporters for showing up in the weather while making her closing arguments to voters.
The only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we go forward with a new generational leader that leaves the negativity and the baggage in the past.
And Governor Ron DeSantis splitting from Trump after the former president predicted the economy would crash, suggesting he wanted it to happen this year.
If the economy crashes, people would get thrown out of work, businesses would go under. I don't want to see that happening.
M. Wynn, ABC News, Washington.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas today in the occupied West Bank to seek governance reforms as part of efforts by the United States to rally the region behind post-war plans for Gaza.
Blinken says he's secured commitments from multiple countries in the region to assist with rebuilding and governing Gaza after Israel's war against Hamas, and that wider Israeli-Arab normalization is still possible, but only, he says, if there's a pathway to a Palestinian state. Blinken says the Palestinian Authority has a responsibility to reform itself, to improve its governance, and that he would discuss that with the 88-year-old Abbas, who has not stood for elections since 2005 and lacks support among his own people. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Taking another recap look at the forecast, this could be the last day on the plus side before the cold hits tomorrow night. Temperatures are expected to reach a high of 6 degrees today, with a 30% chance of showers into later this afternoon. And that's all for your news update. Coming up in 60 seconds, we'll take a look at sports. I'm Ben Bugera, and you're with 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
You're with BCIT's The Crow. I'm Ben Bugera. Now let's take a look at your sports. The Vancouver Canucks won their third straight road game by whipping the New York Islanders 5-2. Here's the call from Sportsnet 650 as Elias Pettersson scored in the second period.
Walking along the blue line, right side Hronek down the board, centered in front, tipped right on top of the crease by Miller. And Sorokin made a great pad save. Now they steal the puck. Pettersson in front for Miller, back to Pettersson, he scores! Oh my goodness, what a goal!
The Canucks will play again tomorrow in Pittsburgh, then Saturday in Buffalo before finishing off this big 7-game road swing Monday in Columbus. Well, it's tough news for North Vancouver's Connor Bedard as he is expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks after having surgery to repair a fractured jaw. The 18-year-old, drafted first overall by the Chicago Blackhawks in the 2023 draft, has 15 goals and 33 points in 39 games so far this season. Blackhawks coach Luke Richardson says the move to have the surgery was precautionary for such a young player. Bedard currently sits atop the league's rookie scoring standings. Well, it's more good news for the Canucks as division rival LA Kings continue to fall in the Pacific Division standings. Nick Perbix scored at 2 minutes and 3 seconds into overtime, and as the Tampa Bay Lightning rallied from 2 goals down in the third to beat the slumping Kings 3-2. Here's the final call.
Going to find a teammate. Hagel stays with it, goes to Perbix, right circle. Perbix a step in front. Backhand shot. Score! Score! Nick Perbix! He wins the game for the Lightning!
The Canucks also continue to be neck and neck at the top of the league standings with another Canadian powerhouse. The Winnipeg Jets blitzed the visiting Columbus Blue Jackets 5-0 to extend their winning streak to a franchise-tying 7 games, keeping them alone atop the league standings. Gabe Vilardi scored a goal in the third period for Winnipeg. Here's the call from Power 97.
Perfetti has 2 goals tonight, never had an NHL hat-trick. Backdoor out in front, Vilardi, a shot, he scored! Gabriel Vilardi was in the right spot, and Winnipeg worked it around. They found the back door. It's a power play goal.
Looking down south now, it's an end of an era in Seattle today as the Seahawks announced that Pete Carroll will step down from his current role as head coach. Carroll has coached the Seahawks for 13 seasons, winning the Super Bowl with the team in 2013. Carroll got a bit emotional at a press conference this afternoon, expressing his gratitude to his players.
Really, it was really, and I go to it's not just the dedication and the loyalty, it's the freaking juice. It's bringing it. And I asked a lot of them, and they were good at it, and I appreciate that a lot.
Carroll will remain with the organization and step into a role of advisor and executive vice president. He leaves the Seahawks as the winningest coach in franchise history. Well, the LA Lakers got back to the 500 mark in the NBA standings by edging the visiting Toronto Raptors 132-131. Anthony Davis led the Lakers with 41 points and 11 rebounds. And that's your newscast for this hour. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and that's it for us today. I'm Ben Bugera, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
I'm Ben Bugera with BCIT's The Crow. Travelers on BC ferries could be in for long waits today as heavy winds are causing major delays on 2 major routes. Ferries announced the cancellation of both the 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. sailings from Tsawwassen and Swartz Bay, as well as the 10:15 sailing from Tsawwassen to Duke Point due to adverse weather conditions and high winds in the Strait of Georgia. With winds gusting up to 60 kilometers an hour in Tsawwassen this morning and into early this afternoon, BC Ferries is warning that more cancellations could occur if conditions don't improve. Passengers should continue to monitor the BC Ferries website for up-to-date information. As of now, flights out of YVR and seaplane services have not been affected. Ferries say they will continue to monitor the situation to make sure that vessels are able to leave the berths safely. More high wind systems are expected later this week on Thursday and Friday in Metro Vancouver, which could also adversely affect ferry traffic. Ben Bugera, BCIT's The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.